attention, everyone, please. May I have your attention, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's 7 o'clock, and the county is about ready to start the meeting. Beforehand, I would just like to thank the county officials for coming here tonight in your own backyard to hear your concerns or compliments or whatever it may be about the project in front of us. It's a pleasure to have them here. We've worked together very well in the past on projects, and I'm suspecting we will be able to do that going forward here. I'd like to thank our hometown Senator Nicholas Scutari, Senate President. He provided all of the $43 million in state grants for the project. So the project isn't costing the county taxpayers anything or the township taxpayers anything directly. Obviously, state taxes, everybody pays. We get that. But the county's here to do a presentation. It's their meeting. They're going to run it. I'm just doing a quick welcome. I believe it's a cutoff at 9 o'clock. County Manager? Yes? Okay. And the only thing I would say, folks, try not to be redundant. Like if someone makes the point you're making in front of you, you just might want to get up and say, I agree with what he just said. So as many people as possible can be heard on different issues or concerns. With that, on behalf of the Township Council and myself, I'm going to turn this over to our County Manager, Mr. Ed Oatman, and his team that's here tonight. Oh, yes, of course. Let's get up for the pledge. Thank you. We talked about that. I pledge allegiance to the flag in the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Manager. The council president usually does that, so that's not in my job description. But we have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to your staff for all the help they gave us in setting this up. We couldn't have done it without them, obviously, and thank you for the use of this room so we can have this public meeting. Good evening. My name is Bruce Bergen. I'm the Union County Council, and I'll be serving as the MC tonight. I want to welcome you all to what we hope will be an opportunity for Union County to provide factual information about the recreational programs proposed for the reservoir, to correct any misconceptions that are out there, and to hear comments from you, the residents. Representing the county this evening are Vicki Durbin Drake, the director of our Department of Parks and Recreation, Deputy County Manager Amy Wagner, and our County Manager Edward Oatman. As County Manager, Mr. Oatman is responsible for overseeing the details of the implementation of the planned development at the reservoir. Before we begin with an informational presentation by our engineer CME, I want to just briefly review a few guidelines. First of all, as advertised, we anticipate ending this program by 9 p.m. The format this evening will be as follows. As you may have noticed, we have asked anyone wishing to speak to sign in. If you want to speak and you haven't signed in yet, please do so at this time. In order to allow as many people as possible to speak, we are limiting each speaker to 3 minutes. Please cooperate and abide by the clock timer so we can move the program along as smoothly as possible and have as many people speak as possible. Finally, I want to stress that the county and our professionals are here voluntarily to provide information and to hear statements by the public. We respect each person's right to express their opinion, but we would request that each of the speakers in presenting their remarks, likewise, respect the participants and public attending. At the beginning of your remarks, please state your name and residence address. As noted, comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we would ask that you try not to be overly repetitive in your comments. We would ask those in the audience to not use any cell phones, to limit background conversation to the extent possible, and to be mindful of the volume of your voice if you're speaking in the audience. Please, no comments or yelling from the audience. Let's show respect for the person speaking and let them have their comments. We insist all speakers not make any inflammatory personal comments or attacks, threats, or engage in the use of vulgar comments or profanity. I trust these guidelines will assist in ensuring a productive evening for all involved. But should things get out of hand, I must reserve the right to end a speaker's time early, to ask any person disrupting the meeting to leave, and to have them removed if they do not. I must further reserve the right to end this meeting early if the comments become overly repetitive, personal, or should that be warranted for any other reason. Thank you once again for coming. I'm now going to present Mike McClellan, PE of CME Associates, who's going to make a PowerPoint presentation concerning the program. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mike McClellan, CME Associates. We're an engineering firm. We're about 4,000 strong. We have a local office, about 300 to 400 people, and we're happy to be here tonight. Coincidentally, I grew up 3-4 blocks from here, and I'm happy to meet with you all and go through this presentation. It's our pleasure. It's when we were kids, we went to the Resi. This is where we went. So I know the area pretty well. I'm about 65, so I guess we moved here in about 1962, so I know the area for a pretty long time. So I don't know, maybe better than you do, but I do have some history in the neighborhood. So we're going to go through it one by one and try to basically show you what we're proposing, try to answer some questions that you might have, and hopefully we can go through and have a nice meeting and get you to understand what the plan is. So, Rob, okay. Obviously, first sheet is introduction, as we had the county manager already introduced, Director of Parks and Recreation, County Council, and I'm here myself, Mike McClellan. I have Gary Lever from our office and Peter Bednarski, project managers on this project. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about some history. Hopefully, I don't bore you too much, but I think it's important to go through and try to give some history of the area. You may know this already. If you do, I apologize. Then after the history, some background. We're going to go through the proposed improvements, the dredging, which I know is on everybody's mind, and lastly, the lakes. And I'll explain to you what the lakes mean. There are several reasons why we have to try and get the same nomenclature, so when we say East Lake, West Lake, you know what we're talking about. So first thing, history. The area of the land became Clark Township. It was originally Lenape Indian tribe, and was used as hunting grounds. In 1686, a guy named William Robinson immigrated from Scotland and settled in the area. 4 years later, he constructed his homestead off Madison Road, which is currently there, as you know. And that's along a tributary of the Rahway River. The river was named the Robinson's branch of the Rahway River. Nice to know where it came from after all these years, because in Rahway, obviously, that has a lot to do with what goes on over there. Continuing history, about 170 years later, Clark was officially incorporated, 1864, when it broke away from the city of Rahway. 43 years later, the reservoir was established by a company called Consumers Aqueduct Company. And what they did was to construct a dam, which is still there, has been modified, as you all know, in the last few years. But the dam was constructed to create the water impoundment. As the area in Clark and this area got larger, water was needed for consumption, for drinking water, and that's why the dam was constructed. Later on, the water bodies were split up, and I'll go through that in just a minute. About 13 years later, the reservoir was used as one continuous water body until the 1920s, when Raritan Road was built across the lakes, and then in the 50s, the Garden State Parkway was constructed. So what happens now is it was one overall reservoir from Featherbed Lane, which used to be called Raritan Road, all the way down to what is Madison Road now. But with the construction of Raritan and the Parkway, it broke it up, and that's why we're going to basically go through this nomenclature with you. What's the West Lake, the East Lake, and the headwaters? Continuing with history, thank you, Rob, you're doing all right. In 1997, Clark purchased the land from Mills Water Company. About 10 years later, Union County became the process of accepting ownership of the reservoir to help meet maintenance and development demands that were required for the property. In about 2008, the county purchased the reservoir from Clark Township, including about 16 years later, the property from St. Agnes. Now, some background for the improvements. This is important so that we all can understand what we're talking about tonight. So the area where the headwaters of the lake, and I can't use the mouse, but anyway, the headwaters of the area of the lake beyond Featherbed towards the west. And that's basically the area where the water comes in, goes through the bridge at Featherbed, and then drains to what we call the West Lake. The West Lake is the lake along where the Deutscher Club is, and is the lake you'll see in our later presentation, where the bulk of the silt has accumulated, and you'll see why it's important to get that dredging done. Central Lake is the area by Raritan Road, between Raritan Road and the Garden State Parkway, and the East Lake is between the Parkway and Madison Hill Road. The proposed improvements. First thing is obviously the dredging. We'll talk in more detail about that. Next thing is the primary path improvements, park improvements, environmental improvements, and several things inside that. But we've given you a picture of the West Lake up on the screen. And you can see the area, and I don't think this laser pen will work, the area which is right adjacent to the Deutscher Club. That woody area used to be full lake. Now, because of the way the dredge or the sediment has accumulated, that peninsula has grown out there, and because of state regulation, we can't take that peninsula out. We're going to try to do some work along the Deutscher Club there, but for the most part, that peninsula cannot be removed because it's turned to wood vegetation. You can see the trees and the woody vegetation growing there. So that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight, to try and explain to you the importance of why this dredging must be done. I think most of you know that already, but you can see what the degradation will be. If nothing's done in the next several years, this is going to continue to worsen. The other lakes will start to approach the same condition. Environmental improvements include the dredging of the reservoir headwaters, West Lake and Central Lake to limit further sediment and reduce overgrowth, stabilizing drainage ditches to reduce soil erosion and improve sediment control approximate to the reservoir. You all know, in many cases, the drainage from the adjacent properties drain into the lakes and have created large crevices. We all know, we walked across them. I know some of you know there's wooden boards across them, and something that we've been walking across for some time. And the idea is now to go through and create a walkway, which will show you some pictures of how that's going to look in the future. Last but not least, for this discussion, we're going to create a wall near your Department of Public Works to address and control debris from entering the lakes. What's happened is your Public Works Department does their work, which is normal. They are creating piles of, probably most of the time it's sands and mulch, and sometimes that washes down into the lakes, and we're trying to prevent that by putting this wall in there. That'll be good for the Public Works spend, so it's what's called a push wall. It'll also basically prevent some of the deposition into the lakes. Next slide is the Central Lake, and this is some of the sediment that's occurred. This is a drone photograph that we took, and you can see in the photograph where the sediment has accumulated, and the green algae that grows is really from where the sediment has basically slowed down the flow of the water through there. So I think that I don't have to tell you folks that the sedimentation is a real problem. We're recommending the county do this as soon as possible. It's not going to get any better by itself. Project funding was discussed earlier. This project is funded through a series of state grants, including the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA of 2021. The estimated funding is $43 million to be used for the reservoir improvements, and our budget is built around that. Next item is existing encroachment. As part of the project, the county will continue efforts to mitigate existing encroachments along the reservoir property as required by the...
Excuse me, Mike, I'm sorry, right here, to the right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The TV studio is asking me if you can just speak into the mic more so it's clearer. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Okay. All right. Next item is existing encroachments. I hear you. To mitigate existing encroachments on reservoir property as required by the NJDP and the NJCF. The NJCF is the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, in case anybody's not sure who they are. Okay. We thought we'd get some areas out there for you folks to see what the total area of the project. Total area is about 162 acres, and while that is not all land, it includes the lakes themselves. So It's a fairly large area. The reservoir is about 82 acres, and the land is about 80. So it's about a 50-50 split between land and the reservoir. The proposed improvement area, however, is only about 8 acres. So we're not proposing to defect or modify all 180 acres or 160 acres, or even the 82 acres. Really just 8 acres, which is about 10% or 5% of the total project area. The proposed area to be protected, including the lakes, is about 153 acres, or 95% of the total area. So there's no proposal to do a major change in the area, and really, it's really just about 5%. Next slide is the dredging improvements. We thought we'd include this to just try and give you folks an idea of what it is we're going to do. There's regulations that prevent full excavation into the bottom of the lakes. We're trying for a 5-foot clearance between the surface of the water to the ground. What they allow you to do is to go to what's called hard bottom. And we have actually been out there with a boat doing probing to go through and get the depth of the sediment. And what you're seeing there is, in the brown color, is the sediment depth. So what our contractor's going to do is come in and take that sediment out, and so you'll have that full depth of water when we're all done. Headwaters is about 5,000 acres of sediment. The West Lake, again, this is why that nomenclature was important, is about 13,000. The Central Lake, again, the largest, 135,000 for a total excavation of sediment of 154,000 cubic yards. That's quite a big number, folks, and you can see the sediment is a concern. We're pleased to report that the bulk of the sediment that has washed down to these lakes has been eliminated by the developments taking place upstream, however you look at that, but at least it'll cut down on the sediment. The county is currently looking at methods to try and prevent further sedimentation into the future. That's on a later phase, however. So again, the headwater improvements, this is the part of the lake above Featherbed Lane, across the street from the Deutscher Club. There's an 8-foot wide asphalt trail proposed along the northwest side of the headwaters from Featherbed Lane to the proposed building. And that's in order to provide access to the storage building and the maintenance building that the county is proposing there. There's a boat ramp proposed there. There's currently, as you folks know better than I do, an earthen boat ramp, which some folks use, and a parking area is proposed. So that's been there for some time, and this is county-owned property, and we have worked with NJCF with regard to the crossing there of their property. You're out. Next. East Lake is, and we're jumping around a little bit only because the Central Lake is the largest lake and also where most of the improvements are done. East Lake, we have an 8-foot wide asphalt trail. Only on the north side, as you all know, there's very little walking done on the south side. It's partly because of the way that the water company, and I hopefully remembers, I remember when the water company was actually operating there as a water plant. Bulk of their equipment's there, the building was there, so that was rarely ever walked. So really, most of the walking took place on the north side. And we get some pictures to show you what the towpath looks like and how we're going to try to insert the path with very little damage to the trees there. There's also a boat ramp proposed in there. We'll talk about that in more detail along Wendell Place, and a boat barrier, which is intended to mitigate potential folks going over the dam. It's been something that concerned us from day one with regard to the way the dam works over there. Next slide, Rob. Continuing on East Lake, there's 3 pedestrian bridges included, and that's important because we're trying to create a circular, circumferential trail around that lake, so that folks that may want to jog or walk can really do that. And we've designed it so that it's handicap accessible, ADA accessible, and in addition to the parking area along Lakeside Boulevard, some anticipated security features, including surveillance cameras. Important to note here is we'll show you, this is a picture on the left-hand side. If you can see and if some of you can see it closer, there's a red circle. That is where the picture was taken, and you can see it's earthen soil there where people walk currently, and that shows where the asphalt path is going to be when we're all done. So we're able to insert the proposed improvements into the actual photographs and see what it's going to look like when we're done. Again, saving trees was some of the county mandate from the beginning. They asked us to try and save trees as much as we could. We've designed this to try and fit in with very little impact to trees. I won't tell you that we're not going to take a single tree down, but we're doing our best to try and maintain the trees, especially along the residential houses. Next one, Rob. Continuing East Lake Trail, this is another photograph, again, where the red circle is. is where this is proposed. And you can see, well, unfortunately, the leaves are here, so you can't see the path, but where we show the pavement on the right, that's where the path will be installed. So there's going to be some grading required, and obviously the cut-in for the asphalt trail. But in terms of major impact to what you see there now, this should be very little. And that's what the intent was in the county mandate. Okay, next, Rob. Yeah. This is East Lake Boat Ramp, and I understand this has got a little bit of attention. We recognize that this area is a neighborhood section. We've been back there, we've walked it. We know that folks accessed the lake for many, many years. Maybe the Lenape Indians did, I don't know. But all I can tell you is that there's signs of access there. We proposed a nominal parking area for about 3 vehicles with trailers, which may or may not ever occur, and about 10 parking spaces. We think that this is really the only access, logical access to East Lake, short of being able to go through the Parkway Bridge, and we're not sure that's accessible all the time. So this is something that we're not in low lighting improvements. It was requested to try and minimize the impact. We recognize there's residents live over there. We're not intending to invite people from all over the county to come to this. It's really a neighborhood boat ramp and neighborhood access, and that's what the intent was. I understand if you live there in a neighborhood, that may be some different opinions, but we'll hear about that later, I'm sure. So. Next. Okay, Westlake. Now, we're back on the other side of the, this is on the other side of Raritan Road between Featherbed and Raritan. And here again, we are trying to get this trail from the Raritan crossing from Central Lake to the access at Featherbed Lane. So there's an 8-foot wide path. We've talked to your borough engineer about this, and we've come up with some ideas that should work. There's a pedestrian traffic signal and crosswalks at Featherbed and Raritan, so we can get people across there, and you'll be able to walk and bike along that section now. Right now, it's pretty much fenced and wooded. There is a sufficient land, and we have submitted an application to the EP. We're waiting to hear back from them with regard to that approval. Next, Rob. All right, last but not least, the Central Lake improvements. The bulk of the work, as some of you know, is on Central Lake. And there again, we're trying to get this walkway around the lake. It requires we construct about a 600-foot bridge parallel to the parkway, which is something that is more of a pedestrian way. As you go around the lake, you can see in yellow, and I'm sorry my pointer doesn't work here, but in yellow there's a section where the Public Works is, and that's where that wall that I spoke about earlier is going to be. There's a boat ramp and trailer parking proposed off the Madison Hill Road access. We plan on canoe, kayak, and non-motorized boats in the storage building. There's only non-motorized boats required or allowed here by the NJCF easement agreement. Interior paths in and around that area, park storage, a restroom building. We have a plaza area, and the last 2 items I understand are the hits of the night, the electric children's train, which we happen to think is a neat idea, but obviously everybody has their own opinion. And then the carousel, which is another thing that's not normally in a park, and something that was done many, many years ago in parks, and something that is unique. We've done work all over the state of New Jersey. I don't know of one where there's a carousel. So obviously that's subject to opinion again. We think it's an interesting place for that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later on. Let's go to the next slide, Rob. Again, further improvements at Central Lake. Here again, we're trying to show you some of the photographs where we've inserted the walkway into the photograph. And there again, you see the trees on the left, and it's unfortunate the leaves are here, but the asphalt path will be on your right. And again, seeing to try to put it right through that tree opening there to try and save trees. Again, security lighting will be included, surveillance cameras, and some pedestrian bridges. There's about 5 of them through here because of the amount of ditches and the crevices that exist currently along the lake. Central Lake Trail continues. There's another picture where on the left-hand side is existing condition, on the right is what our proposed condition is going to be. Next one is along where you see the red circle. That's where this picture was taken. The asphalt walkway is shown there to the right. This is an 8-foot wide asphalt trail. Landscape improvements will provide privacy between the trail and the properties. We recognize that the property for the county is very narrow there, and the trail is close to some homes. We've tried to be sensitive to that as if it was our place. And I understand that that's a possible concern, but unfortunately, there's no other way we can make that loop work without running this walkway through there. Last slide, actually two more slides, I think. This is Central Lake again, proposed park improvements. There's about 1 mile of recreation use paths, which is a nice circumference. The parking areas, the boat storage building, which we talked about earlier, the floating dock, ultimately there's a concession stand in that storage building, canoe rentals. There'll be a boat ramp with about 10 parking stalls, dual-seasoned rubberized surface play area, synthetic ice rink, which is something that we see quite a bit. So you don't have an ice to create, you basically use a synthetic material for the ice. And last but not least, again, the electric children's train, which is operational seasonally only and will be run on limited hours to be determined by the county. This is the last slide. We have this up so that, as we talked, we can go through, and your questions, your comments, you can point to certain things. Again, all the way to the left of your screen, up on the top corner of the page, that's the headwaters. The next lake is your West Lake. The next lake is your Central Lake. And last but not least is the East Lake. One more note that I should make is that the dredging operation will not be done on the East Lake. There's going to be a biological treatment device that's going to be used after this project's all done. Because bulk of the sediment in the East Lake, and the lake is probably 7-8 feet deep now, is mostly organic matter, and there's a method that a couple of folks are using where we can degrade those organic deposits without actually going into a machine and excavating. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mike. I think we're going to turn that podium around.
And this presentation will be on the website in a couple days, probably by Monday with the holiday, on the county website, excuse me.
Samantha has a list of names, so she's going to let you know a couple names so you could...
We're going to call people by the order they signed in, 3 at a time, so you'll know when you're in the queue.
Can I have Adriana Silva, Beverly Green, and Daniel Green?
Good job.
Adriana Silva, Beverly Green, and Daniel Green. In that order, please.
Do I have to say my name? Hi, I'm Adriana Silva. Do I have to state my address? Wait, can you reset my time, please? Thank you. I'm here reading a prepared statement on behalf of Diana Gonzalez at her request that she could not be here. I want to thank the county and those who advocated for the reservoir dredging for years for their investment in the proposed plan. The plan calls for a recreational park to be built on the currently heavily wooded land beside St. Agnes. The concept plan includes 140 paved parking spaces and numerous amenities. 19 acres of mature forest are proposed to be changed forever, with 50% of that acreage to be converted to impervious surfaces. Additional deforestation and paved parking is proposed along various points along the reservoir, as well as paved walkways invasive to residents' privacy and safety. As organizer and member of the Clark Reservoir Committee, I've been in communication with the community through social media, phone calls, and in-person conversations. Some feel a fishing pier, one boat ramp, and a pedestrian bridge spanning the reservoir parallel to the parkway is okay. Most feel a simple hiking trail through the woods filled with the sounds of birds and a view of the waterway is where the line should be drawn. While opinions differ, there is a lot of common ground. Nobody wants to see deforestation in favor of amusement park-like development. The reservoir is a wildlife preserve and habitat, and that must be our guiding principle in all we do. Are you aware that 30% of birds have vanished since 1970 in the U.S.? Habitat loss has been the main cause. In the U.S., a football field of land is lost every 30 seconds to development. Part of the rationale for the project is to address flooding. Did you know that one tree consumes between 100 and 150 gallons of water per day? We don't need more destruction of the precious little remaining undeveloped space left in crowded New Jersey. When I spoke with Victoria Drake, Parks Director, she verified that this is a concept plan and the final project may look different based on community input and hearings. Our committee has been door knocking, talking to residents, so we have a good handle on resident sentiment. We are serving as their voice. To date, we have secured 1,100 online and physical petition signatures and counting. Clark already has 2 county parks, Oak Ridge and Esposito, and nearby Rahway Park, and so many across the county. We are not lacking in recreational space. We are lacking in open, natural wildlife habitats. We advocate for alternate access points to dredge the reservoir, such as behind Grand Centurion's ALJ or the municipal building. Let's keep the forest intact and make Westfield Ave the primary access point. That will keep traffic on and off the parkway centralized and avoid directing traffic all over town. There are creative solutions we can explore together. In summary, we're here asking for your support to right-size the project with the guiding vision of maintaining it a natural habitat and wildlife preserve. Thank you very much.
My name is Beverly Diane Green, and I have lived on Francis Drive for 40 years with my husband, Daniel. I have loved living on the reservoir. It has been so peaceful, quiet, and safe. I have enjoyed the beautiful views and the variety of wildlife. This has been my happy place to come home to for my job as a kindergarten teacher of 34 years. Now I'm approaching the age of 76. I'm home most of the time. I am concerned about my personal safety because Union County plans to install a 10-foot wide asphalt walkway just inches from my home and my pool area, plus lights every 50 feet. If this happens, I will no longer be able to sit in my gazebo or on my deck or to go into my pool, which I need for physical therapy, because of the constant invasion of privacy by foot and bike traffic on the walkway right next to my home. I will be trapped inside my house with the shades drawn to prevent peering eyes from looking inside. It will be like living in a tomb before my time. As you know, criminals like to prey on senior citizens. The constant flow of strangers too close to my home will make me live in fear and worry of break-ins, being attacked, or worse. My happy place will become my unhappy place. My 31-year-old son, Danny, who has Angelman syndrome and requires round-the-clock care, lives in his own home, supported by a team of dedicated caretakers. If the walkway shown on the county plan is built, my beloved home will be worthless, and my disabled son's special needs trust will have no funds upon my passing and my husband's. Without the proceeds from the sale of our home, he will lose his home and have to become institutionalized. So his happy place will also become an unhappy one. For all these reasons, and for the sake of me, my husband, my disabled son, and all the other residents on Francis Drive, many of whom are also seniors, I'm asking you not to put an invasive walkway behind the homes on Francis Drive. Thank you for your consideration of this very important and very serious matter.
I just wanted to point out that none of the concept plans have lights on the trail. So I don't know where you saw that, but there are no lights.
It's up there. Yes, they did.
My name is Daniel Green. Perfect, thanks. My name is Daniel Green, and I have lived on the Francis Drive on the shore of the Clark Reservoir for 40 years. I want to give you a glimpse. Excuse me, I picked up the wrong paper. Just a second, please. All those years we have enjoyed the peace and privacy of nice views of the reservoir. The county plan to dredge the reservoir will be great for flood control and aesthetics and to provide healthier water conditions for aquatic life. Another nice feature of the plan is to provide some facilities to encourage passive recreation such as boating, fishing, kayaking, and so on. But for the residents like us who live on the reservoir, this is a plan from hell. It shows 10-foot wide lighted asphalt paved walkways right on the property lines of Francis Drive and homes on the north shore of east of the parkway. These walkways would be inches from our homes, pools, and decks and would totally ruin our lives. It would also destroy a substantial part of the conservation easement, impacting the wildlife habitat. Who in their right minds would think that this is a good idea? This plan has already made a lot of residents extremely upset and angry, and we are losing sleep and sick with worry about what you are proposing to do to us. Union County must revise this plan to enhance and preserve the environment and the value of properties along the reservoir, not destroy them. Installing these walkways behind homes is, in our opinion, reckless and irresponsible and shows total disregard for the legal rights of residents to peace and privacy. Walkways must be confined to public areas such as the north shore of the Central and West Lakes where there are no homes. No other park in Union County has walkways right on the neighboring residents' property lines. There are always substantial buffer zones between walkways and residential properties. You must give Clark Reservoir residents the same consideration. Your plan shows no walkways behind the homes on Wendell Place, Winthrop Road, and Doris Way. We wonder who told you to put walkways behind Francis Drive and the North Shore homes, but not behind Wendell Place and Doris Way. Union County is showing favoritism toward one area and against another, and that is totally outrageous. You are applying a double standard to different neighborhoods on the reservoir. No homeowner on the reservoir should have to suffer invasive walkways in their backyards. These walkways will cause us irreparable harm. Remove them from your plan and give us back our peace, privacy, health, security, and property values. Thank you.
Can I have Nancy Twakas, Craig Holleran, and John Jacobson to the podium, please?
Hi, Nancy Twaskas, 43 Colonial Drive, Clark. I've written my speech a dozen times. I focused on topics like the number of asphalt parks we have in Union County already, how this park was going to be good for some people but destroy the lives of others, how the wildlife will once again lose out to human perceived needs, how we talk about climate change yet cut down entire forests of trees for a tourist destination, how this type of park was never mentioned in the 2021 email responses when asked for input on the park plan. One response even complimented the commissioners on keeping as much of Union County as green as possible. But waking up today, it was clear to me what I wanted to focus on: the amusement park, the unnatural entertainment center that is planned to replace the woods that are now on Madison Hill Road between St. Agnes Church, a place of worship, and Genesee Drive, a street of single-family homes that back up to the woods that have no white plastic privacy fences for now. I guess that made me want to focus on the area was seeing the plans that were in the municipal building yesterday. What jumped out on me was the one-eyed Frankenstein monster that will be there if the plans are implemented as they are laid out. Other descriptive words that came to my head were attractive nuisance, absurd, ridiculous, bizarre, over the top, outrageous, expensive to maintain, 5 bags of poop in a 1-pound bag. I could go on, but I think you get my message. It doesn't belong, period. A couple questions. Was the back of the high school considered for the boat ramp? A high school could have a rowing team. Was the DPW street next to the police station considered for dredging? Was CME given the plan prepared for the Reservoir Committee of the Clark Township Council in September of 1999? This document has a lot of good, non-invasive ideas. I have a copy if you'd like to borrow it. Has there been a feasibility study for insurance, safety, delinquency, loitering, drownings, securing the area overnight? Does the project team have citizen representation? If not, I would like to recommend a Clark resident who lives on the reservoir. His name is John Victor Jacobson. John loves the reservoir, as you can tell from his videos on his Facebook page. He also has a background in construction. In closing, I heard people speak against the plan. I hear there are people who like the plan. Are there really people that live in Clark who like the plan? Thank you for coming tonight. I also want to thank the Grassroots Clark Reservoir Committee, the Sierra Club, Nicholas Platt, Grassroots Advisor, former Harding Township Mayor, currently a Governor Murphy Shared Services Czar, and Julia Summers, prior Chair of the League of Conservation Voters. Thank you.
Craig Halloran, 120 Donaldson Place, Linden, New Jersey. I have a question. Has anybody paid attention to the recent New Jersey DEP stormwater regulations? Says you take out a tree, you replace it. Okay? Where are you going to replace these trees that you're taking out? And another item I'd like to bring up is that in an area of 4,000 square feet with 1 inch of rain, comes out to approximately 2,500 gallons of stormwater. How are you going to control the stormwater and any of the debris or pollutants that come off parking lots or any other areas within this proposed park? Okay? And, where does the sewage go to? Which treatment plant? Railway Valley? I don't think it goes to joint meeting, and I don't think it goes to Passaic Valley. I could be wrong. And the other thing is, what kind of economic impact, positive or negative, is this going to have for Union County? I don't care where they get the tax dollars from to pay for this. It's all out of our pockets, okay? And, I'm not saying don't do things. I'm not saying that at all. But think about everything. How are we going to control? I know I've been listening to other people bring up about lighting around their houses. Lighting invites, I should say, unfavorable characters at times. I don't live in the area. So am I directly affected by this? No, outside of my tax dollars. So again, it's how does this economically help Union County? I do thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and I'd love to get a copy of any and all plans for this thing so I can further look at them and address any other comments to the county. Thank you very much.
If I may, real quick, sir, you asked a question about the trees. The tree replacements will be done in the buffer areas alongside the park. So where we have residential areas, the tree replacement will take place to go through and reinforce the existing tree vegetation exists. Second is that there's an existing sanitary sewer, collector sewer that's already crosses across the property by St. Agnes. We're going to tie right into it. We believe that wastewater goes to Railway Valley. Just to answer your questions, okay?
Hello, everyone. I'm John Victor Jacobson. I live at 1 Melvin Court in Clark, New Jersey, at the end of the Clark Reservoir. I have a beautiful view of the spillway and have enjoyed that for the last 24 years. What I'd like to talk about are some of these walkways, which appear to be somewhat invasive as I look at them on the plan. And what I'd like to see considered is a series of floating walkways put into the water. It's less invasive, it's less intrusive to the trees, it's less intrusive to the neighborhoods, and you don't have to do it everywhere, but I think it would be great to have a whole series of waterfront walkways at the park area. It would be putting the trailways in the water and not have as many trails running through the park. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Delia Collins, Jeff Freeman, and Bruce Patterson. Delia Collins, Jeff Freeman, and Bruce Patterson to the podium, please.
Good evening. Delia Collins, 72 Georgia Street, Clark. I have two concerns. One is safety. The area where the so-called amusement park will be, will it be patrolled by the Union County Police, or will it be mandated that the Clark Police help out because Union County Police have a lot of areas to cover at other parks? I'm sorry? Okay. Water safety regarding the reservoir, fishermen, boaters, whatever, whoever was it's morally or legally responsible for the Clark Emergency Squad, Clark Police, Clark Fire Department? Are they morally or legally obligated to come to an aid of an injured person or a person that might be drowning in the reservoir? In Westfield, they have the Union County EMS, they have the Union County Police. It's at least 3 miles away from the Clark Reservoir. Vandalism. We live in an area that doesn't have a lot of vandalism, but it does occur. What happens when vandalism comes? Do the Clark Police get called? Do the Union County Police get called? We've had vandalism in some town parks. Signals on Madison Hill Road and Raritan Road. I've read the map, and there's going to be signal crossings by pedestrian signals at Featherbed Lane and Raritan Road, and also on the downslope on Madison Hill Road by the falls. That area by the falls is it's curvy, it goes down. There's got to be some type of warning there for people that may not be familiar of what's going to be there as far as the traffic signals. Regarding the area on the potential where they're going to be having the future dredging area on the headwaters, I went on the maps today and I see that Union County owns a lot of the property around the headwaters in Westfield and Scotch Plains. Is that a future dumping site for the sediment? And when will the sediment be moved out of that area, and how? Would the railroad come into play? Because it's right there, the Conrail line. That's what they did at Hyatt Hills. They brought in cars and they had the contaminated soil sitting on the railroad tracks for several months and then moved out to Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeff Freeman. I live on 1022 D'Antonio Drive in Rahway, where I am blessed with being a neighbor of Rahway River Park and cursed by the vastly excessive noise, amplified noise from loudspeakers, both mobile and static, and by the fumes of this horrible charcoal lighter stuff. Okay, so I sympathize with the residents of Clark very much. I'm only addressing the little area, the 8.25 acres, the amusement park. Chairman Marabella spoke, then Chairman Marabella spoke of preserving a large parcel of land for nature conservation and public recreation. We're gathered here to defend our health and that of our natural milieu against the outdated notion that public recreation must entail an ever deeper immersion in ever more modern technology in competition with, if not outright opposition to, nature conservation. Scientific studies, our own felt experience, we know that recreation, whether active or passive in a natural environment, is infinitely better for our emotional health and our physical health than interaction in a built environment. Simply breathing tree-sweetened air, hearing more of birdsong and soft breezes and less of cars, planes, and other machinery is a proven restorative of mental equilibrium and sheer happiness. We desperately need every bit of respite from our self-destructive absorption in this crazy world. We all demand distraction from the madness around us. But let us compare natural versus mechanical. What does it do to our health and to our very souls? We're presented with a proposal to pave over a large area of the park, depleting groundwater and increasing polluted runoff into the already degraded reservoir. Automobiles and mechanical contrivances will assault our ears and poison our air. Our already too limited contact with vegetation and wildlife will suffer. As we endure the ravages of environmental destruction, species loss, and climate change, must we blindly destroy our little local vestige of heaven? Thank you.
Good evening, County Manager, Council, and Directors, and CME professionals. This is Bruce Patterson, Garwood, New Jersey. There's two issues, actually, that come to the forefront here that people may not be realizing. CME already has a contract to design according to what they just offered on the screen. And there's a contract in January that was given out. So obviously the design is going forward. The second issue I find is actually there's no commissioners here to see what's going on and watch inflections and the vocal tenacity. It's just, this is like a dog and pony show, I would assume, that we're just having, because it seems like you're just railroading it through. From what I understand, yes, there's money that could be lost by the end of the year, so we have to do something, we have to do something, we have to do something. Well, how about listening to the people if you're going to do something instead of just running through? Speaking of listening to the people, back in April 2021, you actually did a public reach out for people to give input by an email for developing a master plan. So I actually opened all those emails from the residents to check out their input. And actually, there was 123 emails, and I got it, and I went through it. Some of them did refer to the reservoir, and let me just go through some of these things. We found residents did address the Clark Reservoir on pages 33, 37, 39, 50, 81, and 138. One resident, actually at the very last page, he said, "It is not to be an adventure land." The comments regarding the reservoir from the public, they specifically wanted it to be passive. A passive park, some walkways were mentioned a couple of times, kayaks, playground too. There were also general comments throughout those that didn't specifically talk about the reservoir, but the parks themselves. And they were saying, you know, notes we need dog parks, which could be there. A couple of them said we would like gardens everywhere, and that's great. That would be a great addition, is a lot of gardens. Page 47 actually noted a visit to Essex County Park. Oh, and that was also a big dog park. Page 93 noted a priority of parks is for preservation and restoration, not development. And also further on, it mentions about education that the park should be. Page 106 actually mentions senior and disabled accessible elements, which I really didn't see much incorporated. 118 actually noted benches to be everywhere. So lastly, a note of warning hidden within page 118 and a few other pages. The residents were complaining about dumping of trash and wanted cameras throughout the various parks. This issue will obviously occur in this reservoir area. So in every single email, we found nothing but passive elements requested.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Cut me off. I had like, cut me off 4 seconds.
We have plenty of speakers.
All right, well, I'll see you guys, I'm sure, at the next meeting.
Please give everyone an opportunity.
Thank you.
Can I have Ed Robinson? Ed Robinson, Joe Farrell, and Gloria Corzentino.
Ed Robinson, Jarvis Terrace in Clark. My wife was born in town, and after we got married, we moved here, so I've been a resident for over 50 years, or almost 50. I said, my wife was born in town, obviously still lives there. We were married 50 years ago and bought our house here, and we're still in town. About 12 years ago, I saw something very unique. Because of the commissioners who sought to make that a wildlife refuge, I saw bald eagles flying around. Never thought I would see that in Union County. Been a resident for over 70 years. Now you're talking about making it an amusement park. A different note, every town gets very upset about impervious property causing flooding. You're paving over a wildlife refuge. You're doing it on the edge of the reservoir, which already has flooding downstream. You're going to create more flooding. And by the way, when you drained the reservoir to see what you had to take out, you proved you could use that to control flooding. You could lower it before it rains, or drop it down 2 or 3 feet to start with, instead of doing the opposite. Your basic plan is nice, but way overboard. We do not need an amusement park in a wildlife refuge. Thank you.
If everybody could speak or get closer to the microphone, the tech people have already reached out. The comments are not being picked up by the TV because the residents are too far away.
Is this good? Can you hear me? Thank you all for coming tonight, ladies and gentlemen, mayor, council, and other representatives. Build it and they will come. And that's my concern. You want to develop the resi and the surrounding land, which takes up about 4% of the Clark area. Truly, we're talking about a jewel within the township. Clark already has probably over 100 acres of county property, including Oak Ridge, Esposito, plus Clark has its own properties, fields, I should say, with 5 school fields, plus Navargic and Bartell Parks. So what is it that you propose to do with this jewel? You want to develop it. To what? A picnic area, exercise area, paving to park some 142 cars, 8-foot walkways, boat dock, fishing pier, boat ramp, food concession, restrooms, admin building, and bridges. So when the people come and fill the 142 spots, where are they going to park? Well, they're going to park on Madison Hill Road, Genesee Drive, Rainbow Drive, Mildred Terrace, the Grand Centurions, and St. Agnes parking lot, and as well circular driveway. This development will no doubt disrupt St. Agnes churchgoers on a Saturday evening, and for many masses on Sunday morning. New levels of call for service will occur. Clark Police response, Fire Department response, First Aid response, rescue those dunking into the resi. Don't forget, for years, they did not permit people on the resi at all. We've had some drownings there as well. The bottom line is I'm for the project of dredging. There's no question about that. How long is this project going to take if it's implemented, is my question. And I propose that the plans for this park be transferred to Rollway River Park. There, that park already has ample parking, waterway, mature trees and shrubs, and less disruptive to the surrounding neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Gloria Corzentino. Can I have Ron Ordner, Lawrence Budnick, and Danny McCaffrey?
How we doing, everyone? Thank you for coming today. Been a Union County resident most of my life. Grew up down in Elizabethport. Moved to Clark about 12, 13 years ago. I understand what CME is doing, but I don't see anything in the plans on what's the expenses going to cost after this. It kind of reminds me of giving my daughter $20 to go to 7-Eleven, and she comes back with 10 cents for me. Understand we got $43 million. Do we really need to spend all $43 million? Okay, listen to the concerned citizens here and say, hey, do we really need a train, a carousel? I'm all for doing something with the woods. I'm all for doing something with the reservoir. But we got to start thinking, hey, what do they want around there? Who's really going to use it? What's the expenses going to be? How many FTEs is this going to cost us? I don't see any of those numbers. What's the expense on the train from now for 5 years, from now to the carousel? We got to put people inside to work the concession stands. Everybody mentioned safety. You're probably going to have somebody over there by that reservoir because nobody wants to have, nobody wants to have a life in their hands when a 5-year-old drowns. I'm going to give up another minute and 48. Thank you.
Lawrence Budnick. Danny McCaffrey.
Good evening. Mr. Oatman, thank you for being here. Mayor Bonacorso, thank you for arranging this and taking all the calls with the business administrator. Thank you. So I did come to the last commissioners meeting, Mr. Oatman. I spoke, I read this. I'll read it again, it's brief. My name is Danny McCaffrey. I live in Clark. My backyard actually backs right up to the Clark Reservoir. My family and I will be directly affected by any changes made by the county in this area. My concerns lie with the scope and magnitude of the project. I've seen the posted plans for this, and personally, I don't think it's necessary or appropriate for this area. This is entirely a residential area. We currently have 3 Union County parks within a square mile of each other that are underutilized. Oak Ridge Park, Esposito Park, and the new Rawway Park by the middle school there. All of these are county parks. Most of the time, with a few exceptions, these parks are often empty. I don't think we need to build a Bowcraft-like amusement park to a residential area just because we can or because there is undeveloped land. There's something to be said for leaving the area undisturbed. The reservoir is a beautiful nature preserve, and by adding this, hundreds, if not a few thousands of trees will be removed and the wildlife will be ruined. I'm not a tree hugger, but I think this is a waste of county resources and an enormous developmental overreach in this pristine area. I too saw a bald eagle 2 days ago flying over the area, and there are tons of wildlife that will be severely affected by this project and the habitat intrusion. I do understand and I adamantly agree that the reservoir needs to be dredged in certain areas. This is expected somewhat routine maintenance, and it should be done for the long-term survival and the preservation of the area. However, the projected location for these plans are off. Do we really need to add a walking path around the whole reservoir? A train to go around the new area, splash parks? I personally already pick up the garbage from the few people who walk the undeveloped path that was shown on the video. Who would maintain this area and who would be responsible for keeping it clean? The reservoir is a beautiful natural resource that we have in our county, and I fear this project would ruin this residential area and fail to be maintained. I ask, please scale this project back. Just do the dredging, leave the reservoir as beautiful as it currently is. If something like this is unavoidable, would you consider putting it into Oak Ridge Park? That's a huge area, or some components of this, the train, the splash park into Oak Ridge, and scaling it down. Thank you.
Clea Karsha, Pranita Bijlani, Glenn Robinson.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Clea Karchia, Executive Director of the Rawway River Watershed Association, or the RRWA. The RRWA is a 501c3 nonprofit who has been in continuous operation for over 30 years. We have a 10-member board with a variety of specialties, including engineering, hydrology, ecology, science, education, and more. Our mission is and has always been to protect and restore the Rawway River watershed. I am here today representing the RRWA. Our board believes that many aspects of the county's plan for Clark Wildlife Preserve, otherwise known as Clark Reservoir, would benefit the public. We support the following elements of the plan: the mechanical dredging of the water body, which we believe will have a positive impact on aquatic wildlife; the construction of a footpath around the reservoir and pedestrian bridges to connect trail sections; the numerous boat access points and a boathouse. We are concerned, however, that some parts of the plan will be too disruptive of the natural ecosystem. We are especially concerned about the following elements: the train track and choo-choo train, the train depot, carousel, synthetic rubberized ice rink, clock tower, concession stand, administration building, and other buildings that are not directly supporting the maintenance of the footpath, docks, and boathouse. We have the following concerns about the items just mentioned. Their construction will require the deforestation of much of the preserve. Animals will be displaced into the town of Clark and possibly into the surrounding towns of Scotch Plains and Rahway. Crucial habitat will be destroyed. Parts of the forest will be replaced with impervious surfaces such as buildings and parking lots, causing an increase in flooding and pollution from runoff into the water body. There are not many areas of forested open space left in Union County. We are hoping that protecting the Clark Wildlife Preserve will remain a priority for the county. The sound of the train will bother the surrounding Clark residents as well as animals who live around the reservoir. There are many benefits that trees provide both to humans and the environment, including the reduction of the heat island effect. I believe others will speak to more benefits, so I will leave it at that. Thank you in advance for considering these concerns. Although the overall intent of the plan is to benefit the public, revising it to address these concerns will benefit both the public and the environment. A possible solution is to relocate the concerning elements to another Union County park, perhaps Oak Ridge.
Good evening. My name is Pranita Bishlani, and I am a 20-year Rahway resident, and I've come to voice my objections to the proposed development of the Clark Wildlife Preserve and Habitat. While I understand that Union County aims to create a space for public enjoyment, I want to assert that keeping the forest and ecosystem as is would provide many more benefits for the residents of Union County. A healthy, thriving community depends on a healthy environment, and intact woods and ecosystems perform many services for humans. The trees in the Clark Preserve filter pollutants from the air and help to lower asthma rates. In an April press release regarding its 2024 State of the Air report, the American Lung Association stated regarding particle pollution that Union County, New Jersey continued for a third consecutive year as the metro area's most polluted for the long-term measure, just passing with a pollution level at the federal standard that was recently updated. Our area and surrounding areas also often receive Ds and Fs on the annual report card for ground level ozone. In our area, there are numerous power plants that are responsible for the emission of particulate matter, nitrous oxides, which become ground-level ozone, formaldehyde, volatile organic compounds, as well as numerous other pollutants. The trees from the Clark Preserve serve as a buffer and actually filter and remove numerous pollutants, making our air cleaner. They help keep pollutants from the 2 power plants in Woodridge, the 2 power plants in Linden, and the Bayway Refinery, the Covanta incinerator in Rahway, from the heavy traffic of the highways in our area, and from our wildfires out of our children's lungs. Rates of asthma among children in our county are extremely high, and we should not underestimate the profound value of trees that not only form a physical barrier, but also actually absorb, retain, and transform these pollutants. Many of these pollutants are also associated with increased cardiovascular incidence and increased cancer levels in communities, and even premature death. I know many of the proposed amenities are designed to entertain children and provide recreational activities for families. As a school teacher for 30 years, I can tell you more than any carousel, choo-choo train, or skating rink, children are mesmerized and fascinated by wildlife and nature. These younger generations are also profoundly aware of the degradation. These younger generations are also profoundly aware of the degradation of the environment and habitats of animals. The children of Clark will be acutely aware of the displacement of animals and will mourn the losses of seeing the beauty of a bald eagle in the treetops, a fox scampering by the reservoir, deer lingering at the edge of the woods. What more magical classroom, what better learning experience than living, breathing organisms in their natural environment? What amazing opportunities for children to ask questions and learn about the interconnections between species and be inspired to learn more about ecology, biology, and natural systems. Why not think of this grant as a way to add green infrastructure? Why not add trees, create a nature center, perhaps an Oak Ridge Park?
Good evening, Glenn Robinson, Francis Drive and Clark. I'm going to echo a lot of the comments that you've heard from the community in this meeting and in previous ones, so in the interest of time, I do want to point out that the plans don't seem to take into consideration that the flood levels in New Jersey statewide have been raised 3 feet. The plans that you have don't have that into consideration, so they're kind of outdated and obsolete. You're going to put a walking path in where there's a flood zone now, and going to be one, they're going to wash out. That's going to be increased maintenance costs. It's come up in the last town meeting, plus earlier tonight, about the emergency response. Someone calls 911 from their cell phone, it's going to the National Response Center or the desk right here. And if someone's drowning and they need a water rescue, I really doubt they're going to be sitting out somebody from Union County. This is a town that sometimes there's only 2 officers on patrol. Related to that, there's been a lot of break-ins in the town. The CPD has done a good job with preventing it, but they've not been eliminated. The park's going to put a pathway in residential backyards, which is going to create easy access point for miscreants to discreetly gain unlawful access to homes because they'll not need to have a getaway car parked and running in the street anymore as they do now. Thank you.
Patrick Delaney, Jackie Dickert, and William Fedursky.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Delaney, and I've been a 32-year resident at Wendell Place. I want to preface my comments by saying I do totally support the dredging of the reservoir. I think it's very necessary in order to make sure that we alleviate the flooding problems that we've had all around the town. And I also would support installing an aeration system into the reservoir to make sure that the water is pristine and it can be used to support additional aquatic life and actually provide an area where we can enjoy nature. I think the most important part about the project should be the preservation of our natural resources and not, having to put in trains and carousels and things of that nature. I have to say thank you to the Reservoir Committee because I live on Wendell Place, but I found out about this project because of Facebook. Despite living on Wendell Place, I was on the wrong side of the road. I did not receive a formal notification like many of my neighbors did. And that's when I got involved. I took the time to go to the website to see if there was a comprehensive environmental impact study that talked about what would be the impact on Clark as it pertained to the community, to the increased traffic that could occur. We know that if a park or something like that's put in, there's going to be events that are going to be sponsored. It's going to draw more and more traffic to our quiet neighborhood. Wendell Place is surrounded by Lefferts and Terhune. It is a quiet little neighborhood. We have young children running all over the place. I fear for their safety. I see how people come up and down Wendell Place. It is a narrow street. It is not designed to bring boat trailers down or anything like that. So I ask you to consider that in your deliberations. Wendell Place, the street itself is in a state of disrepair. We have sinking storm drains. Okay, we have very poor drainage issues in the area. Increased traffic is only going to exacerbate that and make it worse. Our quality of life will clearly be affected because of that. Noise. The trees that we have and the deforestation plan that you're talking about and knocking down trees and taking them out will eliminate a natural sound barrier. That sound barrier is preventing the noise from the GSP as well as the Clark firing range.
Sir, thank you.
Jackie Dickert.
Hi, I'm a proud Union County member of resident over 50 years, and I use the parks on a daily basis. I was a school teacher, and I took my classes in the woods to study nature. I'm a photographer, feature pictures of our parks in venues all around the state, including Newark Airport, which I've won awards for the parks around here. So I'm really concerned about, and proud of our parks. I feel that the proposal is written, I think we have more to lose than we have to gain. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the reasons. I'll just say I agree with the flooding, concern about flooding with the impervious surfaces and the deforestation. You heard a lot about why we need to keep the trees. I will mention that there are trees in Union County are in trouble. You've probably heard of Dutch elm disease, emerald ash borer, spotted lanternfly, beech leaf disease, woody adelgid, oak wilt, to name a few. And there's a lot of development that's happening outside the parks. Shade tree commissions are dissolving, or some towns don't even have them. So I think we really need to be planting more forests than taking anything down. This is a gem that we have. I'm not going to read my prepared comments because they're kind of repetitive, but I did want to tell you, I came across this publication from Union County, 1971. Maybe some of you who've been around have seen it. It was celebrating 50 years of Union County parks, and it was written 54 through 53 years ago, and I have a little time, so I'm going to read from the introduction. Soft spring rains soak into the broad lawns of Warnaco, Nomahegan, Cedar Brook, Greenbrook, and the other parks, doubly enhancing Union County by bringing green again the parklands and by enabling the rainwater to seep slowly into the underground water supplies as nature intended. Contrastingly, on streets in residential areas, shopping center parking lots, and city streets and open highways alike, the rainwater splashes off the hard, oil-slicked surfaces and rushes headlong into the storm sewers for quick passage to the sea. The falling drops that cascade off pavements benefit no one. On the high hills of the Watchungs, hundreds of thousands of spreading trees keep the soil in place, cool the earth, and work overtime to help repair the delicate balance of air and soil. The woodlands absorb some of the worst of winter and summer, and by doing spare and so doing spare those nearby of much of the harshness of seasonal change. I'm going to skip to the last part of the introduction. Were it not for the Watchung Reservation, today's young people might not ever see a masked raccoon, a lumbering groundhog, a sleepy opossum, a gentle deer. They might not hear the pleasant song of a cardinal, watch a Baltimore Oriole, or marvel at a soaring hawk. The Union County parks enrich people directly, the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. They ennoble the spirit of those who take to the great outdoors. They brighten as well as the daily existence of thousands of homeowners whose picture windows look on the reservation forests and parks and lawns. For boys and girls whose teachers appreciate the wealth and knowledge available in adjacent parklands and woodlands may be the luckiest of all. Okay, one sentence. In these parklands, they learn that they are part of the natural order, and they recognize
Please give up the mic,
preserve the
everyone
order.
else.
William Fedursky.
William Fedursky, 32 Hillcrest Drive, former chairman of the Clark Environmental Commission before the town disbanded the commission. But before that, I was a member of the Robinson Branch Reservoir Preservation Committee. And at the time, we prepared a natural areas nomination to the state of New Jersey, which Commissioner Shin actually agreed with us that we were a vital natural area within the state, with the reservoir being the largest freshwater body in Union County. I myself have seen up to 4 osprey feeding on the reservoir at the same time. Now that's important because osprey cannot exist solely based on saltwater fish. They have to come upstream and get freshwater fish to balance out their electrolytes. In addition, I've seen species like pied-billed grebe running through the reservoir. But part of the problem here is Clark has no representation in the county. When Tommy Kazmarek was around, we at least got a little concern from somebody. Bernie Yarra-Savage years ago was very effective in keeping the county from four-laning parts of Raritan Road, which have now happened because the county has gone and put in the Martini Avenue extension and made local road improvements through Fanwood, Scotch Plains, and Clark, and made it a connector from Terrell Road in Route 22 down to the Parkway. Now, that may be great for other parts of the county, but it's increased traffic in Clark tremendously. And then there's the issue of Oak Ridge. They wanted to put in a running field at Union County College, but the neighbors in Cranford did not want trees to be gone, to have more flooding, and to have more traffic. So what does the county do? Well, we'll put it at Oak Ridge next to the Pumpkin Patch Creek, which already floods. So it becomes pointless to create more and more impervious surface. And again, this is a habitat and preservation area. It was never meant to be an amusement park. I hope to God that New Jersey Conservation Foundation gives you the hardest time possible in whatever you want to do. And I hope that the state of New Jersey goes tough on you on any sort of an environmental assessment on how it's going to affect the access to wildlife in the area. Thank you very much.
I would note that the New Jersey Conservation Foundation has in fact signed off on the plan and is supporting its application before the DEP. Thank you.
Andrew Zatos, Christina DeLuisa, Ellen Mulligan.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you for having me. I kind of feel like Buddy Holly following Elvis after everybody here. I'm just going to voice the same concerns. I think that some of the proposal is probably out of step with what a lot of the residents want. Amusement park is going to have noise problems, pollution problems, environmental problems. I'm not going to repeat what a lot of people here said. I do have some concerns. I'm curious about whether or not environmental, traffic, historical, and archaeological impact studies have been done, completed, and whether they're available for us to look at. I'm curious as to why walkway wasn't considered behind UCVTS. There's a same kind of walkway there now. Why not improve that? I'm curious about whether or not somebody brought up the fact that Clark police are going to respond if there's a problem. So the question becomes, in my mind, is the county going to reimburse, indemnify, insure the township for the costs that it's going to expend to respond to these emergencies? Because they are going to respond. I mean, there's no way that Union County Police are going to be able to get there in time. I'm an everyday member of the park down at Oak Ridge. I'm there every morning. The gentleman earlier said, if you build it, they will come. That's true. I'm there at 6 o'clock every morning. That parking lot's full. So if you build an amusement park, and one woman said attractive nuisance, they're going to come. They're not going to come from just Union County. They're going to come from Edison. They're going to come from everywhere else. It's not a question of if, it's just they are going to come. So I'm asking that you scale this back a little bit, maybe think about putting it somewhere else. Like I said, there's an area behind UCVTS that's ripe for this. Why not put it there? It'd be a great little walkway you don't have to cut through. I'm in agreement as well. I guess it needs to be dredged. I don't really know. I am impressed with what you folks did at Oak Ridge. I don't agree with everything that you did there. I think that, you know, perhaps you overdid it a little bit, but it's a great park. I like to walk it myself every morning. It's a 2.5-mile walk. I do it with my dog. It's great. But people go there with their dogs. It's loud at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure I'm waking everybody up with my dog at 6 o'clock in the morning. She makes a lot of noise. I'm sure the people who live close by are not going to be happy about it. I'm just hoping that you try to scale this back a little bit and give some consideration to the residents here. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christina DeLuisa. I live at 47 Wendell Place. The wooded areas surrounding Clark Reservoir are not just patches of trees. They are vibrant ecosystems that are teeming with life. They provide habitat for countless species of birds, mammals, and insects. Destroying the woods would mean displacing these creatures, many of which would not survive the loss of their homes. Biodiversity is a precious asset, not only for its intrinsic value, but also for the ecological services it provides. As you already know, trees play a crucial role in maintaining air quality. They absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, helping to mitigate effects of pollution. In a world increasingly plagued by environmental crises, preserving our trees is a small but significant step toward a healthier environment. Those same trees help to filter rainwater, reduce runoff, and improve water quality of the reservoir and local groundwater resources. Clark residents that live on and around the reservoir, myself included, purchased their homes near these wooded areas and the reservoir so they could find solace and tranquility away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. These natural spaces contribute to our mental and physical well-being in ways that are irreplaceable. As for the plans for the woods behind St. Agnes Church, I have heard several times at Clark Council meetings that this will not turn into Boatcraft. However, the Central Lake Children's Train looks exactly like the train they used to have at Boatcraft. The plans also include a carousel, skating rink, play area, and concession stand. That sounds like a small-scale amusement park to me. As for the skating rink, why is it necessary to put a skating rink on the reservoir when Clark already has a rink behind Frank K. Henley Elementary School 2 minutes up the road? Economically, the development may lead to long-term costs. Property values could be negatively impacted as the character of this neighborhood changes from a peaceful suburban wildlife to a small-scale amusement park bringing noise and traffic. On another note, as a resident of Wendell Place, I'm strongly opposed to the decimation of the wooded area slated to be a parking lot and boat ramp. If you look at a map, which I have here, Wendell Place, Lefferts Lane make what looks like a huge cul-de-sac. We do not get any through traffic on our streets. There are no sidewalks on any of these streets, and we have countless small children, specifically on the corner of Lefferts Lane and Wendell Place, that play outside all the time on their bicycles, their scooters, and now that it's summertime, they're outside all the time. The residents that live on these streets drive under the speed limit because we know how many children are out playing on their bicycles, scooters, etc., especially during the warmer months. Clearing these woods and putting a boat dock in that area
Thank you
would be
very much.
inviting too much traffic and would endanger the lives of the children.
Good evening. Thank you for arranging this meeting. My name is Ellen Mulligan. I live in Wendell Place in Clark. The Clark Wildlife Preserve and Habitat. This is the name, and habitat. Please leave it as a habitat. Please scale down what you're going to do. I'm interested to see if you have a budget to maintain all these parks and trails, and will you be receiving any revenue and income? Will you be renting boats and kayaks and canoes? Wendell Place and Lefferts Lane is an old, narrow road. Lots of times there's cars parked on both sides. Parking is at a premium. It's narrow, one lane down, and we have a lot of kids. It's shouldn't be have increased traffic there, especially with boats and trailers. I would ask you to please scale everything down and keep it as a nature preserve. Thank you.
Erie Lugo, Annabella Ordner, Frank Makoshe.
Okay. Good evening, Erie Lugo, Terhune Road, Clark. Dear Union County stakeholders, I am here to express my deep concern regarding the proposed large-scale renovation project on the shores of the Clark Reservoir. As a resident of Clark, I believe the current plans for the site are too extensive, too commercialized, and fundamentally out of character with the surrounding wetlands area. The inclusion of a motorized train system, an ice rink, a carousel, sports fields shifts the focus of this project away from preserving the natural beauty and tranquility of the area. Such developments will likely disrupt the local ecosystem and transform a cherished natural space into a bustling theme park-like environment. This contradicts the original intent of maintaining the reservoir as a peaceful, open space, as supported by the Robinsons Branch Reservoir Preservation Committee and many local residents. While I acknowledge the necessity of dredging the reservoir to address siltation and sedimentation issues, and I appreciate the efforts to clean up the garbage, debris, and invasive plant species, the additional recreational and commercial elements seem excessive. These features may not only cause environmental harm, but also introduce traffic, noise, and other disruptions to our community. Additionally, the increased maintenance required for such extensive facilities would likely lead to a rise in local taxes, placing further financial burden on residents. It is also worth noting that the county already struggles to maintain Esposito Park on Madison Hill Road, which is just down the street from this proposed new project. The issues with upkeep and maintenance at Esposito Park raise serious concerns about the county's ability to properly care for another large-scale recreational area. I urge you to reconsider the scope of this project. A focus on enhancing natural beauty with minimalistic recreational facilities would likely be more beneficial and welcome. This would maintain the reservoir's role as a serene escape for fishing and bird watching. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Hi, my name is Annabella Ordner. I live on Francis Drive. I echo a lot of the sentiments that I hear tonight. Even as you were doing your presentation and you showed Francis Drive, I don't live next to the walkway, but I don't think any of you have really seen how close that pathway is to these homes. If you went and actually observed where you were planning on building this pathway, would you want this by your home, on the side of your home? Would you want this intrusive pathway? Now, the choo-choo in your amusement park is going to be directly behind my woods. I enjoy, watching the fox, the deer, the bald eagles. My children have enjoyed it. I want to keep it that way. A few nature trails I do not have a problem with, but why isn't this money? Why is no one discussing maintaining what we already have? I'm tired of looking out my bedroom window and seeing PVC piping in the woods. It's been there for years. Has anyone bothered to go clean up the woods behind my house? No, it's an eyesore. The other thing is, we were away last week. You know what I did when I came home? I have 2 kids. One of them is still under 18. I was in my trampoline cleaning up debris from the big tree limbs that fell from the storms last week. These trees are infected. Somebody, I don't know the name of all the diseases, but are you going in there like trying to treat these trees or trim these trees? I'm thinking, what if my child had been on that trampoline? I want to take the trampoline down because I know it's not safe. What are you doing? What have you done to maintain that area? And now you're telling me you're going to build an amusement park and you're going to maintain that too? Do we need a choo-choo that is only going to be used a few months of the year? And we have to maintain it year after year? And it's just going to bring more garbage, because there's plenty of garbage out there now. And you're telling me you're going to do a better job of cleaning it up? I don't think so. Please listen to us. We need more nature in Union County. I grew up in Elizabeth. I moved. I particularly fell in love with my home because it felt like heaven back there. I felt like I was not in Union County. And now you're destroying that little piece of tranquility we have. Please listen to our voices, minimize this project, and take a look at where you are building, because none of you would agree with having this by the side of your house or behind your yard.
Good evening. Frank McCroce, 12 Kennedy Drive, Clark, New Jersey. Thank you to County Manager Oatman, Mayor Bonaccorso for making this happen, and thank you for making this happen, bringing everybody here. Mr. Bergen, Mr. McClellan. A couple of disclaimers first, right? Number one, I'm only a 30-year resident in Clark, so I'm basically, by Clark standards, an outsider and a newbie. And I also do not live on the reservoir. And I have worked with the county on several my sons have worked with the county on several Eagle-style projects. So at Esposito Park, the birdhouses, the kiosks, the bat houses, and archery targets at Oak Ridge. So those are some disclosures. Also, I was not a supporter of the tract at Oak Ridge, and I also was kind of lukewarm with Esposito. I can say, with a hand on heart, I told Ron Zuber and Victoria Drake, Urban Drake, great job. So good history there. I was ecstatic about learning that the township was acquiring the reservoir back in '97. I think it was done in an interesting way with the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, which generated $4.25 million of property value on Melvin Court and generates about $93,000 tax levy per year for those 6 residences. New Jersey Conservation Foundation is not easy to work with. I was hopeful back '97 that my family, our family, would wind up having access to the reservoir. There were a lot of efforts done. And the Clark Environmental Commission, I think, did a great job of coming up with plans, but they didn't have the experience nor the deep pockets to execute this project. In the current situation, Mr. McClellan mentioned a few things, and I think they were important in that Central Lake area, and I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody, but from my personal experiences, getting a boat launched from the ramp at the firehouse, Station 2, is next to impossible, number one. Number two, there was a huge fish kill, carp, that county had to get front loaders and bulldozers to remove the material. So those are other things that I think are important. So I think the boat ramps make a lot of sense. I think the hiking trails make a lot of sense. My children would go along Lakeside Boulevard on the East Lake and use it as a shortcut to Madison Hill Road going from the high school. Finally, the only thing I'll say is the bottom line, let's provide access with discretion, but still do the right thing. Thank you.
Kevin Ransky, Joseph Seabold, Robin Dexter Mayer.
Thank you very much. My name is Kevin Ransky. I live at 56 Maybell Drive. I'm a proud resident of Clark for 24 years. I'm also a commercial real estate broker and not unfamiliar with site plans, traffic studies, environmental concerns, or development effects on communities where it occurs. Understanding the county is committed to the development of the area and have already spent millions preventing development on the sites they have acquired, I have worked on an alternate plan that could benefit the residents in the town as well as your Union County constituents. As lovely as the Essex County Waterfront Park across from Turtleback Zoo is, the sites are not comparable. That site is on hundreds of undeveloped acres, and the amusement amenities are actually in the zoo. Our reservoir is nearly completely surrounded by residential and municipal development. This is not an apples-to-apples comparison, and we only support features that are common to other county parks and deficient in Clark, like a dual-purpose sprinkler park or a recreational ice rink. This would minimize impact on the already congested roadways in our community. We have formed an organization and created a plan that can be found at commonsense4.com. On this site, we have proposed an alternate plan that protects the property rights and privacy of the residents that live on the water. There is a way to create a park that serves the needs of this town and the county at large and respects the character of the community and the rights of the homeowners living on this amazing natural asset. Our plan substitutes amusement for education and amenities for active and aging adults, amenities for families as well. The goal should be a plan that enhances not only the lives of out-of-town residents, but the host community as well. We have spoken to the Clark Reservoir Commission, who is also sponsoring a petition, and their ambition is to minimize or eliminate the park features, and that's admirable. In a perfect world, if a path to get this necessary investment to dredge the reservoir without compromise existed, I would not have invested my time in producing a plan that protects the interests of the town and gives voice to the residents impacted by its development or the flooding concerns we have. Please review our document and consider the issues and compromises we present. Reach out if you care to discuss our ideas and concerns. Thank you for your time tonight and the investment in our town. Hopefully, when it's all said and done, it's something we can all live with. Good night.
Good evening, I'm Joe Seabode. I live on Sandalwood Drive, about 100 yards from the main access point off of Madison Hill Road. I have kept hope for the 30 years I've lived in Clark that one day we'd see the resi managed in a way that will allow for reasonable, unobtrusive uses. I'm very proud to see my community, my neighbors, environmental organizations, and others here tonight, all who agree that the proposal before us is not unobtrusive and is not reasonable. Please consider further climate impacts in the next phase of design for this project. This year, climatologists predict will be the warmest ever since we started taking measurements. This will not be good for the reservoir. In fact, over time, this will be extremely deleterious. You heard about a prior fish kill we saw, and those worry us a lot. Hurricane Ida in 2022 and a local 1,000-plus year microburst last July killed people and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in flood damages. Importantly for this discussion, just 50 yards from the Madison Hill site entrance, families were overwhelmed by floodwaters and had extensive property damage. You heard that going back in time, there was a reservoir committee and a lot of public engagement. There has long been a local ambition for finding a balance that would align the Clark Wildlife Preserve designation with a strategy for reasonable recreational use that would not overwhelm the fragility of the water body, the surrounding lands, and community. With limited natural areas in the drainage basin, there is minimal means to effect meaningful water purification, flood risk, and environmental management. When we know we are in store for more frequent and intense rainstorms, we should be thinking ahead and planning projects that will not intensify impacts in surrounding areas. Water resource management in the new climate paradigm will be critical, so seeking to strategically employ the 3S tactic should be paramount. That is, slow it down, spread it out, and soak it in. The proposal for the 18 acres, which includes clearing substantial mature trees and reducing large portions of the site to pavement and impervious surfaces, does not meet these principles. If the intent of this recreational development is to take advantage of the value that the resi can provide the public, then I ask you to focus on those water-based attributes: fishing, kayaks, rowboats. These would be resi-dependent. On the other hand, decimating the last large forested area adjacent to the resi for carousels, ice rinks, trains, clock towers, large maintenance buildings and roads, and paving over 140 parking spaces would be a devastating blow to the greater environment, and long-term it will adversely affect the quality of the resi. I respectfully ask that you consider a greener approach based on what's coming with our climate and given all the efforts of the last 30 years to preserve limited remaining open and natural spaces in the Rahway River watershed.
Hi, I'm Robin Dexter Meyer, and I live at 24 Catherine Street. We're a couple blocks up from the reservoir, but we really enjoy seeing the birds, the animals in our yard, and we really appreciate the coolness of the reservoir. You can walk down the street on a hot day, and it's cooler down there, even though we have a lot of trees on our street. There was a notice that we could send an email to the business administrator and it would be forwarded to you. So did you get my email? Okay. All right. So in my email, I acknowledge that, I think it is important to have the dredging done to maintain the integrity of the reservoir. I'm surprised in this plan that there was no mention of Clark Wildlife Preserve and Habitat. That's really important, and that should be acknowledged in any plan. In my email, I also mentioned that Union County Parks had questionnaires for improvements that were going to be done at Oak Ridge Park and at the Historic House and in other parks, and I think that you should do an online questionnaire to see what people in Clark want in our reservoir before you do anything. I'm a Christian educator, so usually when I get up to talk, I talk about God, but today when we're talking about the reservoir, we're talking about God's creation. And I think that this plan can be improved so it is better stewardship of God's creation. Because having walking trails, I think, is fine, but the trails that you're proposing, I think they're too much. And certainly the recreation area is too much. I think in Union County, we need all the green space we can get, so I would not want any of these recreation area things transferred to any other park. I enjoy the Oak Ridge Park, walking around, and I think that the quiet, the green is very relaxing to people, and I think that whatever you do, it should be environmentally friendly, people friendly, and animal friendly. Thank you.
Marge Burson, Anthony Colucci, Claire Labruno. Marge Burson. Anthony Colucci. Claire Labruno.
Hi, Claire Labruno of Post Road in Clark. Most of my concerns have been mentioned by others, but I do want to ask, the documentation, the presentation we've been shown, and also the documents here, they're different than what's been on display, at least as of June 4th at Town Hall. So is there a change management document for what you're showing us, and is that something that's available to the public?
There have been some changes to the plan. What you see here in these documents tonight and on your screen is what the current plan is. The earlier concept plan has been modified slightly. One thing is that there was, for example, a stormwater basement, major basin that was on the plan. That's been eliminated now. So there has been some subtle changes, but not significant.
Right, so will there be a I mean, you have to have a change management document, I'm assuming. So is that something that will be available to the public as this plan continues to develop?
I believe the presentation is going to be put and provided on the county's website. You'll be able to compare that plan. And certainly you can actually call me and I'd be happy to go through and tell you. But the bulk of it was that stormwater management plan.
Okay, thank you. The one point that I wanted to reiterate that's been said is about the changes of cutting down all these trees and what that's going to do to the groundwater. Yeah, this is the area that floods, and every time anything's developed, we're always talk about things being negligible impact. But this is not going to be a negligible impact, and anything that's cumulative is not negligible. So I don't think the county should be adding to problems of cutting down trees and putting this area in. If development's mandatory to achieve the needed restoration to the reservoir, it should be phased, and it should be looking to create passive recreation that's appropriate for the property with a minimal impact on wildlife, residents, and the water table. And in my opinion, this area, this recreation area, should more closely resemble something at the Great Swamp, where there's walkways out and there's birding, and that's it. And I also think you should look at the bioretention filters and stormwater biofilters in the Adirondacks, and you shouldn't be developing on top of the water the way you are planning. Thank you.
Phil Scardilli, Susanna Savelli, Masage Kosmicki.
Hello, Phil Scardilli, 58 Wendell Place in Clark. Shout out to my guys at TV 36. Do not give me a close-up, fellas. Thank you. I want to repeat, hi, Brian. A lot of what the people have said already is we've been seeing the presentation, the PowerPoint, the map. I don't see how any of this is going to help the environment or the people of Clark one bit. You talked about impacts on neighborhoods. Living at the end of Wendell Place, other people have said the same thing. The trees at the end of our block are an insulation for the sound insulation from the sound of the parkway. There's children that play in that dead end, and it's a great spot for them to be outside, and that would be gone for them. Obtrusiveness and also effect on the neighborhood. When those trees are being cleared out, construction trucks will be in our neighborhood. Trees will be cut down. That would be very intrusive. The parking lot being paved and constructed, that will be very intrusive. Where the construction vehicle is going to park in front of our houses, right at the end of our street. I just think you're not being observant of the people who live in the area and the impact it will have on us. So please reconsider some of these impacts it will have. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak today. I have spoken before in the previous meeting, so pardon me if I'm repeating myself, and pardon me if I'm repeating some of the points that everybody has made already. But as you know, with inflation, everybody is struggling financially. We're all tightening our belts. Maybe the county should as well. Just because there's money on the table doesn't mean we should waste our taxpayers' money. Let's focus on what's really a need or a want. As kids, we are told what's really needed, what's really wanted by our parents. Let's not forget that. We thank you for your desire to dredge and aerate the reservoir, which is definitely a need. We see green slimes coming down the road sometimes, and it's definitely time to do something about it. But besides those needs, just because there's money on the table doesn't mean that the county or CME have the right to just use it in a way that could have negative consequences on the people, the community, or the environment, just because there's money to spend. And so let's really focus on what's needed. And we would really like to have a two-way street on discussing on what is going to be spent on. Instead of just these dog and pony shows where we speak up and it might be totally forgotten when you guys go back to the office. We don't really know what there's a feedback, there's no discussions. We speak up, and like a lot of meetings in town halls and those kind of places, county meetings, you speak up, and does it really get taken into account? We don't know. There's no feedback. We would like to have a two-way discussion. The other points, I know there's a lot of points already made, so I don't want to repeat them, but some of these premises that was laid out in the project right up front, which I've never seen on the proposal to CME, but premise of a loop. Why does that have to be a loop? If you're going to be building a walkway in the backyard of people, then maybe we should not have a loop, if that's the only thing. So maybe the premise is wrong. And people have stressed the issue of climate change. It takes hundreds of years to build these trees. Just because you want to plant another tree somewhere else, it would take another 500 years before we get to the same point. So let's forget about that. And then there's safety issues. You want to build a small parking lot hidden in the middle of the woods off Wendell Place? Besides the impact on the neighborhood, as everybody has spoken up, about the traffic.
Please let the next person speak.
Let's concern about the safety.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Maciej Kuzmicki, I live in Wendell Place. I'm going to try to keep it brief. I live in Wendell, where the additional parking and ramp is planned to be built. My kids play on that street. My kids and everyone else's kids on that street play together. They have a great childhood. How many ramps do we need on this small reservoir? How many boats are we anticipating to turn this small residential road into a roadway for trailers? Is this additional parking necessary, or is this just intended pivot point for another future project? We're building a train behind St. Agnes. Is this about the recreational use of water? There are other parks where county has plenty of space to build a circus tent. And with the multiple ramps and walkways behind people's residence, has anyone looked at the logistics of policing the area? Clark has a recent problem with house burglaries. How is the area to be policed, especially in the late hours when fishing stops? You are creating avenue for crime in our safe town. There are alcoholic containers floating in the reservoir, and this is with limited access to the public. How do you police boaters with multiple access ramps? Is there going to be a boat? How do you get over the bridge with a police car? And finally, how will this affect us taxpayers from the county and from the municipal perspective? There is no positive aspect to this. Thank you.
It's just about 9 o'clock, but I understand there are only 2 more speakers, so we're going to extend a little bit so those speakers can both speak as well.
Alan Swanson, Ralph Toll.
Good evening. I'm Alan Swanson. I'm the chairman of the Lawntaka Group of the Sierra Club that represents Union County and most of Morris County. I live in New Providence, so I am a Union County resident. The Sierra Club is the oldest and largest environmental organization in the United States. It is responsible for Yosemite and many of the other parks and wild areas in this nation. We live in a time when climate change is causing drastic changes. Today, we are experiencing the worst, strongest hurricane in the Caribbean that has happened in history. We need to use my tax dollars. The Sierra Club wants you to use the tax dollars to preserve the natural resources that are going to prevent these drastic occurrences. The Sierra Club spends a lot of time talking about grassroots efforts on the part of citizens. We have education, we have seminars about it, we teach people how to get out there. In this area, in Westfield, a group of citizens rose up against to prevent Brightwood Park from becoming a motocross park. They were successful. In Essex County, at South Mountain Reservation, they wanted a ridiculous Grizzly Park amusement area. The people rose up and prevented it from happening. These people are the grassroots people who will be affected by what is being proposed. I'm number 38 on the list. Some people didn't speak. Not one person has gotten up here and said, "This is a good idea. I want to have this happen." This is a ridiculous expenditure of the tax dollars of the citizens that live in Clark and the citizens that live in Union County. Listen to these people. They are the grassroots people. Listen to their proposals. They are excellent. Use this property to further the knowledge and benefits of the forest and the natural resources. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Toll from Dorset Drive in Clark. I sit on both sides of the aisle here. Usually I sit over there. But I'm not grandstanding tonight. I'm just going to ask you very nicely and efficiently. I ask you to dredge the reservoir. I ask you to be passive, non-structured. For all the years, I'm a lifetime Clark resident. All the years I've lived in the town, we've always wanted to go swimming in the resi. When we were kids died. They died tragically. So we want to evoke their memory that it be safe and utilized safely. So tonight I ask you, and I'm going to end the moments because I talk fast, passive, non-structured development to make it used for the next generation. May your legacies as a commissioner or freeholder be not for us, but for the next generation. Build for the kids of tomorrow. That's all I have to say tonight. I hope you use wise decisions and wise thinking. And these are my people. They're my boss. So I have to come up and speak and ask again. Dredge, passive, non-structured development. Thank you.
Thank you all. Before we break, Mike is going to try and address some of the questions that were raised over the last 2 hours.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, just to provide some more background for some of the folks that had questions and just to try and resolve some of the concerns you have. You should know that we have an extensive list of permits that we need for this project. This is not something that does not require extensive amount of engineering. The reports are probably a foot thick that we had to submit to the DEP. And you should know also your state regulations don't require or allow us to increase the water surface elevation of those ponds. And no increase is proposed at this time. The other thing that was raised, and I don't say that these comments calm everything down, but all the stormwater created by this project will be filtered. There'll be filters installed, and those filters will be cleaned out by the county. This is a state regulation, so there's no intent to further contaminate the lakes. In fact, the county has authorized us to put filters in for the drainage from the church. The large expanse parking lot of St. Agnes Church currently drains directly to the lake, and the NJCF even brought it up to us, and we've added it to the project so that that parking lot doesn't directly affect the lake. So it should hopefully help things. You should also know, and you may remember, that this the reservoir was man-made. The dam constructed it. Some of the pictures we have from back when show that it was really just a river, and the reservoir was created. So it's not necessarily a pristine lake. It was actually man-made. The next thing is you should know that there's about 4,000 trees to be saved. Trees will be installed in buffers in accordance with state requirements, so that that number is still being refined with the design. And I think the last thing is that the bridges, there was a concern about the police access. The county has requested and authorized it to design the bridges so they can hold their county police cars or local police. So while they are pedestrian bridge, they will be designed to have the capacity for cars. Okay? Just so to get back these things. Okay? That's all I have. Okay, well, I'm happy to provide that. Yeah, let's talk about it. So we perceive that the mechanical dredging, as it was discussed earlier, is proposed. And basically that's a system where the contractor will use a dozer to push the sediment and collect it and then dry it, okay, because the sediment is all saturated, so it must be dried first. The sediment is being taken to a landfill. That's what the plan is. There's not terrible things inside the sediment. We've tested it. And Gary, what exactly is in the sediment, please?
The sediment accumulations were found to be non-hazardous regulated material, mostly from metals and pesticides from non-point sources, basically stormwater runoff tributary to the reservoir. But again, non-hazardous, but regulated materials.
So, it is a large number. It's over 50%. Yeah. So, and as I said, it's going to go to a landfill, and we're encouraging the contractor. Now, we don't have a project out for bid yet, to do one lake at a time so that it can minimize the traffic. The problem is the time that it would take to go through and do all three lakes. So, but we have done a project in South Plainfield probably about 30 years ago, which is Spring Lake Park. You might remember that. That park was done similar to this one, where the earth was excavated and the contractor moved very quickly. And we suspect that, depending on the contract we get, it should work very quickly. But it is 150,000 yards of material, so it's not small numbers.
On behalf of the county manager, the County of Union, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Again, thank the mayor for his hospitality. We have heard your comments. This plan is by no degree finalized. It is still in review by the Department of Environmental Protection, so certainly your thoughts will be taken into consideration to the extent they can be. Thank you all for coming. Oh, I would say the presentation, I think it was mentioned, but the PowerPoint will be up on our county website probably sometime early next week, ucnj.org. There's no other meetings planned at this time.